Hey everybody, welcome to the channel, or welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can catch more videos like this as I do post them. Also, please do check out the description section below, where I often put more information about whatever it is I'm talking about in the video. If I had to change your mind, change your heart, if I forgot to mention something, it'll be down there, and there's also some links as well, so check it out. If you happen to own this speaker or another speaker that you really love, please post it in the comment section. Also, if you have any questions as well, put it down there. Well, let's get started. This speaker is the Cerwin Vega SL-28. It is a two-way speaker with a 1-inch soft dome tweeter and two 8-inch woofers. I'm going to read the specifications off of my tablet because, strangely enough, the instructions didn't come with any specs. So the frequency response of this speaker is 32 Hertz to 26 kilohertz. The power handling, and then it says RMS/peak, is 300, but then it says 300 peak next to it. And this is actually off of the website. The impedance is 8 ohms and the sensitivity is 89 decibels. This speaker usually sells for about $330 or so, maybe like $350, but you know, that's roughly the price that it typically sells for each. So it says online that the peak power handling is 300 watts on the website. And they do have a chart over here which says that the recommended amplifier power at 8 ohms for optimal performance is 75 to 100 watts. So you could see that little square. The 75 to 150 watts that they mention, I think that that's something to really consider before purchasing this. I did connect this to the Denon 800 or PMA800, which is a 50 watt per channel into 8 ohm amp. I connected this into the Emotiva, which is 300 watts a channel, and I connected this to the Rotel A14, all these numbers, the A14. I connected this to the Onkyo RZ840, running it in pure mode with 120 watts a channel. So just to give you a little idea, the Denon was 50 watts, the Rotel is 80, the Onkyo is 300, the Onkyo is 120, and the Emotiva is 300. So, 300 is probably too much, especially the fact that on the website it says, you know, the peak power is 300, so that's probably not a good idea. What I can tell you is that with 50 watts connected to this, it doesn't sound very good. So I enjoyed this much more with the 80 watts or the 120, okay? So again, it says 75 to 150 watts, so just keep that in mind. So first what I want to do is grab the grill, and this is the grill, just so you could see. So you can see what it looks like with the grill on. You know, that's what it looks like now. Is the grill not popping on? Ah, there it goes. Okay, it's tough. So the grill, you know, is something that you might want to keep on this, especially if you might have kids that might touch the woofers or potentially pets or something like that, because the littlest scratch to the paper cones, and it's very obvious. It's like scratching a piece of cardboard that's black cardboard. It leaves like that whitish line or the grayish line. If anything, even very gently rubbing it. So, you know, you really don't want to, you know, touch these woofers. I'll talk about the quality of this speaker first, because I do think that if Cerwin Vega did a few small things and maybe potentially charged another $50 or so for this, you know, they can, you know, potentially have a much nicer looking and a better sounding speaker as well. I'm not a sound engineer, but I think that what I'm about to say makes sense. The surrounds on these woofers are very hard surrounds. It feels to me like it's some type of a hard, stiff foam surround. They aren't very flexible at all. And the foam feels like the bottoms of those really cheap sneakers, the type of sneakers that you know if you buy them, you're going to be sliding all over the floor everywhere you walk. So, you know, it kind of feels like that. It doesn't really have much give at all. I would like to see them upgrade these surrounds with some type of rubber surround, some type of a nice, soft, flexible rubber surround or whatever material they might use, so that there's more give. When I'm playing music with these, even when I turn it up, the cones just, you know, they're not moving as much as other speakers would. So I can't help but think if they do that, it would be great. The logo over here feels like some type of a sticker, and you could kind of see like the glue all around the outside. So, I mean, it's not the nicest looking thing, so it might be a great idea to just put the cover on it. But I would like to see them do put some type of like paint over this cardboard, paper cone, whatever it is. And, you know, even if like this was painted red, like paint the inside red and then make the surround, you know, black, like the typical black rubber surrounds on speakers, so they could still, you know, have the colors for the company, but it'll just be a little bit opposite. But I think that, you know, then, you know, these cones would obviously move a lot more than, you know, than being held back by the stiffness of these surrounds. Overall, the exterior, it looks kind of like the standard, you know, vinyl or whatever it is on the outside. It has that like fake wood type of look. The rear is kind of interesting, the way it's a little bit indented over here all around. The binding posts, I didn't think were going to be this nice, but they actually are. They feel really good. They spin really well. You know, they feel solid. So that to me was a surprise. There's a fuse over here, which I was kind of shocked to see a fuse on a speaker, but here it is. Then there's the ports. These ports look like cardboard tubes. When I look in here, you could see the cardboard tube, kind of like, you know, at Christmas time, the wrapping paper, like those tubes. That's what it looks like to me. It looks like some type of cardboard, and when I put my finger in here and touch it, it feels like cardboard tubes. That's not the most important, but, you know, it's just something to be aware of. So the exterior, again, you know, the exterior looks all right. I don't really have any problems with the exterior. It's pretty hollow. It's pretty hollow compared to other speakers when I tap on them, which are much more, you know, solid in there. But yeah, I mean, overall, it's pretty hollow, so I can't imagine that there's really anything else inside of it, you know, aside from the speakers being attached. Okay, so again, I do think that if they would just upgrade the surrounds on these woofers and potentially paint the woofer or maybe use a different material, I think that they would get a much better, you know, sound out of it. And I mean, look, I get it, you know, at $330 or $350, you know, I think that, yeah, it's a relatively cheap speaker to get 8-inch woofers. One of the things about this speaker that I do appreciate is that it's not bright sounding. It's not bright sounding and it's not fatiguing sounding. It does have a very classic sound of Cerwin Vega. I haven't listened to their speakers in many years, but when I hooked it up and I started playing music out of it, and of course after a break-in period, of course, as well, to me it sounded like not much has changed in like the past 20 or 30 years or whatever. So, you know, it pretty much still has the same sound. The tweeter, it's not fatiguing. It's a soft dome tweeter. And overall, I really appreciated it listening to music, and especially, you know, those recordings that aren't so good, or some of those recordings that other speakers might, you know, destroy, especially speakers that use like a horn tweeter or some of the metal tweeters out there. I pretty much could listen to everything with this, but, you know, there is a little bit of a catch. I think that With this speaker, what you really want to do is purchase this if you have an equalizer. So if you have an equalizer that's built into your receiver, or you happen to have an equalizer that you're going to add on, whatever it might be, subtracting, so let's just say the equalizer is set flat, okay, everything's flat. I find that, and you know, this is just from listening to it, it sounds like there's too much frequency at that 300, 400 hertz range, okay? So using some EQ on this makes it sound better. Taking down some of that 300, 400 hertz range, it makes it sound more well balanced. Otherwise, it could have a very AM radio type of sound. All right, so just think about like what AM radio sounds like. You know, it's very strong in that type of like a frequency range. So with that said, using the EQ on it makes it sound a lot better. You know, I did it, I took down some of that frequency range, and you know, I appreciate it more. I mean, it doesn't have to be a whole lot, but you know, you definitely want to try to level it, because that type of mid frequency is so strong coming out of these cones. Okay, so the power range and amplifiers. I do agree with their recommended power range, where it says 75 to 150 watts. Connecting this to an amplifier that's like 50 watts, it just doesn't sound as good as if you're feeding it 80 watts or 120 or, you know, I guess 150, whatever. You know, you want to give this some power, but probably don't take it up into that, you know, peak range with the RMS. So I would definitely suggest that if you have something that's like 80 to 150 watts, you know, hey, try it out, see how it sounds. As far as the tonal quality of the amp, I found this to be pretty universal, but I don't think that I would really want to connect this to a really, really warm sounding amp, because it's not bright. And like I said, it's not ear fatiguing. The overall tonal quality of the speaker might not be something that a lot of people appreciate. Again, without that equalizer on it, it can be very strong in that like 300, 400 hertz range. I think that this speaker is a decent speaker for somebody that's on a budget that potentially wants a little bit more bass. But I think for the two 8-inch cones that it has, again, I do think that these cones can be improved, because they're so stiff that I don't think that the bass is very much improved over some other speakers that have 6.5s, where it's very flexible. It might be a little bit better, but I don't think it's a whole lot better than those. The bass can have some nice kick to it, so to speak, and you know, it does have a deeper tonal quality. The mid-range is probably the biggest issue with, you know, as I explained, like that AM radio type of sound. But, you know, taking that down a little bit definitely makes it pleasant, okay? You know, you really can't go into this and expect a speaker that's extremely detailed or very well balanced. It's not a bad sounding speaker by any means. You know, if this was on a very cheap sale, I might say, okay, you know, maybe I would pick up a pair. You know, if it was really cheap, like if in the future these things were on clearance, I might say, oh yeah, I would, you know, pick it up for you know, certain types of music, which, you know, I find to be too harsh with other speakers. For me, I think that probably the biggest selling point of this speaker is the fact that it's not ear fatiguing, because there's just so many speakers out there that are just so ear fatiguing because they're just so bright. And that's the good thing about it. Now, you know, with that said, it's also, you know, not as detailed as a lot of the other speakers on the market. So, you know, keep that in mind. It's really the soft dome tweed is a strong point, and maybe a bit of the lower end on the bass. The mid-range is a bit of a, you know, it's a bit of a mix. It's a bit of a gamble because of that 300, 400 hertz range that I mentioned, several times. But with an equalizer, this can be a pleasant speaker. It could definitely be a speaker that's enjoyable. Another point that I do want to mention is that it's not very heavy. So I can come over here and pick it up. Now, I'm not saying it's exactly light, so if you have a bad back, don't go and do that. But, for me, being able to pick up this speaker, considering its size, this could be an option for people that, might not have the best back, where you can't lift those, 50 to 80 pound or 100 pound, monster speakers out there. So, it's, that's just something to consider. I also think that this speaker could be a nice speaker to start off with, as like a first pair of speakers, with the intent of potentially moving these to the rear surrounds or keeping them as another set of speakers. So, let's just say if you're kind of working with a budget and you want something that's, halfway decent to start off, well, potentially, spending the money on this, but putting more money into the amplifier, and then in the future purchasing, another set of speakers and, moving this off to the B set if your amplifier has A and B speakers that you could switch back and forth. That could be a great option because, again, I'm sure that there are certain songs, there's going to be certain albums where, something like this, where it's not ear fatiguing, is going to serve its purpose. I also want to mention the volumes on this. It's pretty decent at most volumes, but I think when it gets a little bit louder, I think that's when it does better. All right, I don't think that it's as great at a lower volume, but I think at a bit of a louder volume is when it's better, and I think that's because it's kind of bringing out that bass. This speaker, I do think that this is a speaker for rock music, metal, and again, because it's not ear fatiguing, I think that it's great for that. As far as music like jazz goes and other acoustics, well, it might be too soft for a lot of that. And it's not to say that it's going to sound totally terrible after you get used to it, but, and of course, if the EQ is being used, but it might not have enough of that detail for jazz music and some acoustic music. So just, keep that in mind. Of course, anytime you purchase a speaker or anything else, always make sure that you have at least 30 days or so to return it, because if you don't, then you're stuck with it if you don't like it. And each amplifier is going to change the way it sounds and the source material. So with that said, again, I thought that this sounded very good when it was connected to the Rotel. I appreciated it because the Rotel seems to have a little bit sharper treble, or it's a little bit more defined. I do hope that you found this video somewhat helpful. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.